This video is for educational purposes and intended for lawyers navigating the legal and ethical risks of AI. It is not political commentary. Certain terms may trigger content filters or be misinterpreted as incendiary. Viewer discretion is advised. When government starts to dictate how AI tools are going to impact your legal research, it's your ethical duty to wake up and pay attention. An executive order signed last week regarding AI has the potential to break the tools that you have to use every day, even if you think you don't use AI in your practice at all. And almost nobody is talking about it yet, which is fair. When it comes to news, the last few weeks have been pretty chaotic, and this story easily fell through the cracks. But this executive order has the potential to change everything about how you're going to have to start approaching your legal research. By the end of this video, you may actually be considering dusting off those casebooks. This order, called Preventing Woke AI in the Federal Government, is not just political theater. For lawyers, it has the potential to destroy the integrity of the very systems that you have to use to do your job. This isn't just clickbait. This is an actual threat to how you research, and it will absolutely change the way that you have to practice law. It's dangerous, it's unacceptable, and you should be terrified. I'm going to start with the basics here. The order itself. Executive Order 14191 is really titled Preventing the Use of Woke AI in the Federal Government. Donald Trump signed it on July 23rd at an AI summit. It was one of 3 orders he signed that day that was part of his AI policy. But it is the executive order that will have the most impact on attorneys. That same evening, South Park released its season 27 premiere, meaning that a totally different story involving Donald Trump and AI ended up breaking the internet that day. You might have heard about that. What exactly does this executive order say? It bans federal agencies from using any AI systems that promote ideas like critical race theory, systemic racism, unconscious bias, gender identity, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. These aren't just examples, these are explicitly blacklisted in the very text of this executive order. As a result of this order, you're likely going to have a shadow cast over any use of AI, but it's surely going to prove to be problematic for lawyers, and not just those that work for the federal government. It's because another section of the order applies these same restrictions on AI used by contractors, vendors, or recipients of federal funding, which is most definitely going to apply to law schools or nonprofits or possibly government employees at every level of government, not just federal. But it really affects you all, because Westlaw is not exactly going to build one platform to meet the limitations of the executive order and a different one for everyone else. To get why this might be a problem for lawyers, regardless of their AI use, take some basic understanding of how these models are trained. I know that this is where some of you are going to be really worried about getting lost because of tech jargon. I promise you I'm going to try to explain it in a way that you're going to understand. No coding knowledge needed. So let's start by making one thing very clear. AI doesn't actually write as much as it predicts what patterns exist when it's writing a sentence. While this may seem very simplistic, and it is, a good analogy is if you start hearing a sentence, all work and no play. You're going to have an idea of how that sentence is likely going to end. That's because it is a saying that many English speakers are going to be familiar with. And it's going to have a pattern based on that a listener is going to recognize. In the case of AI, it kind of works a little similarly, that these patterns are recognized by scanning the entire internet. So AI isn't exactly writing, not like you're going to recognize it. There's not going to be creative thought there. Instead, it's going to be predicting what the next word will be based on what is mentioned about that topic in the training data. In the case of legal use, this prediction and pattern recognition is going to be based on a combination of different types of data, cases, statutes, and other supposedly reliable sources. However, like I brought up in my last video, some of these sources may be less than reliable. So while I made this comment about a Reddit hot take that was a joke, it actually is kind of an accurate one. Another thing you need to get, and this part is really important, is that AI is not interpreting the sources. It doesn't know if something's outdated or flat out wrong. That means it can pull from bad case law, junk scholarship, or other stuff that hasn't been good law for decades. And that's why many AI models use what's called bias correction, And this isn't to push some ideology, but it's to improve the accuracy and avoid regurgitating patterns that are legally or factually wrong. So here's a really good example of where this concept is going to come into play. And I promise you all of this is going to click because I know you're going to get it. So do you remember this case from law school, Plessy v. Ferguson from 1896? This was the Supreme Court case that established the concept of separate but equal, and it made segregation constitutional. Plessy was the established law all the way up until the 1950s, when it was overturned by Brown versus Board of Education. Over all those decades, Plessy was the law of the land in the early 20th century. It was cited thousands of times. And because an AI model is unable to contextualize, but rather just recognizes patterns, it could give you outputs that represent pro-segregation arguments when looking up this topic, simply because it gets mentioned a lot. Relying on some concept just because it shows up online a lot won't make that concept true. This is exactly why bias correction exists. Bias correction is a mechanism that's built into some AI models to help them prioritize current and accurate law, not just the law that's been repeated the most online. But bias correction is really what's the target of this executive order. For years, critics have painted bias correction as censorship, a way to force left-wing ideology into AI. In 2023, Elon Musk accused ChatGPT of suppressing dissenting views under the guise of political correctness. That later became his stated rationale for launching Grok, his own anti-woke AI platform. So like I mentioned in my last video, Grok quickly veered off course. It's now echoing far-right conspiracy theories, and now it's even tailoring its answers based on what Elon Musk personally believes. And now, with this executive order, Trump is bringing this same agenda to federal policy. He's calling it banning woke Marxist lunacy and promised that only truth, fairness, and strict impartiality will be allowed. But let's be clear that this order is not creating neutrality. It's banning specific concepts like DEI and systemic bias. That doesn't remove ideology, that's just replacing it with Donald Trump's. Now, the concern currently going on among many AI scholars is that tech companies are going to have to begin manipulating their outputs to reflect right-wing ideology just to stay compliant with this executive order. Now, I'm sure you're probably thinking right now, sure, I just won't use AI in my practice at all. Well, bad news. Avoiding ChatGPT isn't going to save you here. And that's because if you're a practicing attorney, chances are you're using one of these tools every day. And this is where you need to start freaking out a little. AI is already embedded in all of them. It influences your research every time you use them. And I'm guessing nobody really told you that. And I'm guessing you didn't know that you really can't opt out. So AI is going to shape which results are going to show up first, which cases are going to be framed as being good law, how summaries are written, and what shows up in your plain language search. Bias correction in these legal research platforms exists for a reason. It's to protect accuracy, not to push an ideology. Without it, that's where you could start getting case law that's cited the most, not case law that's actually still good. Or worse, the AI in your search tool can be manipulated so that your search results are reflecting the ideology that's preferred by the executive order rather than what legal reality is. And yes, before someone says it, these aren't 100% AI, these legal research tools. They are hybrid systems. So you can still run a Boolean search or use filters the old-fashioned way, but that isn't going to entirely protect you. And that's because AI is still baked into the features that shape how your results are ranked, summarized, and presented to you. Even if you're not asking AI to do the research for you, it's going to decide what you're going to see first and what might get buried. That often means that even if you're doing normal research, your results are still going to be filtered by whatever AI logic that platform is using to comply with the executive order. And that's the part nobody's talking about yet. But with one word, I'm going to give you a blunt and chilling example of how this could play out. Equity. It's the E in DEI, but equity is also a foundational legal concept, one that has dozens of meanings across multiple areas of law, most of which have nothing to do with any ideological agenda. For example, imagine you're doing legal research for a foreclosure matter. You need to understand the borrower's equity position. Or maybe you're drafting a damages argument and you need to explain what's equitable. Or you're reviewing a contract that's going to be discussing someone's equity stake. Now imagine that the word equity is on a banned word list and that your search results are filtered or manipulated because of that. The thing is, that may not just be a hypothetical because it's already happening outside of AI. For example, a USDA memo banned the word equity, even in contexts that have nothing at all to do with DEI. And in UC San Diego, researchers have already been warned that they could lose federal funding for using the word equity, even in economic or legal contexts. This problem, with just this one word, is already interfering with legal research, academic writing, and grants. And this executive order pretty much guarantees it's going to get much worse. So here's some other examples of words that will cause you issues: barrier, woman, bias, advocate, disability, climate, housing, non-conforming, inclusion, or Black. Do you use any of these words at work for reasons that have nothing to do with wokeness? And there's a lot more similar words like this, and I assure you these aren't hypotheticals. All the words I just mentioned to you are actually on a list of banned terms from that USDA memo. Similar restrictions are popping up across multiple federal agencies at this point, and this is being documented over and over. This website is tracking the problem and currently shows that the list of words could be over 350. And while this order technically is targeting federal agencies, let's be real. Legal tech companies are not going to create different AI models for government and non-government users. That's not scalable, and it's not how it works when federal funding touches nearly every corner of legal infrastructure, including your law school, your court system, and your research tools. So what can you actually do here? And honestly, the answer is not a whole lot, but there's a few things that can help you out some. One is that you can use Boolean searches over natural language searches. Most legal platforms do now push plain English search bars, which is exactly where AI is doing most of this filtering. A properly constructed Boolean search could help force specific terms into your search results and give you more control. It is clunkier, but it is going to be a little more transparent. Let's be clear, Boolean searches are not going to eliminate your risk. The ranking of search results and the summaries that you see, those are still going to be influenced by AI. Another thing you can try is to do multiple versions of the same query. So if the word equity seems to be getting filtered, try equitable interest or ownership share. That might slip through, but it's not great, but it's something. You can also try cross-checking on various platforms to spot the inconsistencies. If one system quietly drops a key term or reorders your results, you'll probably notice. But how many people have all of the platforms? But honestly, most reliably, brush up on your book research. And I'm only kind of half joking. Learn or relearn how to pull cases without using these tools. I have graduated from law school in 2003. I was forced to learn book research for law review. Even then, nobody used it. And I forgot it the very moment I walked across the stage and got that diploma. So good luck with that. Besides all of these steps, honestly, you can increase your AI knowledge so that you can recognize potential issues easier. And you can't afford to ignore understanding how AI works, even if it's just the basics. This isn't optional anymore. The American Bar Association has made this quite clear. Lawyers have an ethical duty to stay competent with the technology they use, and this includes AI and the tools that use AI. This executive order just made that responsibility a lot more urgent. And because if you don't understand how AI influences your research, you're not going to see the potential issues until you've already relied on them. I'm currently producing a no fluff, no hype course specifically to teach AI to lawyers. It's going to be practical, ethical, and built for real legal work. The best way for you to know when this drops is to sign up for the email list at the link below. I'll even give you a free guide to help you protect your research, and you'll end up getting early access to the course I'm building to help keep your practice safe. I'm also going to continue educating you on AI basics with lawyers here on YouTube in the meantime, so go ahead and subscribe. If this video helped you, subscribe, hit like, leave a comment, and share it with another lawyer. That's telling the algorithm to get it in front of more people who need to see it. And absolutely more lawyers need to know about all of this. So leave a comment below. What words from your own practice are you worried might cause you some research problems because they could be banned? And honestly, if you're one of these old school lawyers who actually remembers how to research from books, we need you now. Drop your best tips in the comments below. My advice, be really, really nice to your law librarian because that should be the rule anyway. Next time, I'll be talking about what I meant to talk about in this video, which will be AI privacy and legal ethics. So see you next time.